Well, that's a pretty good way to start the meeting. Maybe we'll always do that. So thank you so much for coming. It looks like we've got a full house. I wanted to tell you there's a bathroom down this hallway to the left and one downstairs. There will not be a fire drill, so be careful, no smoking cigarettes. And please turn off your phone. And we're going to get started right away. First, I want to introduce Anna Thurston, who's been helping with Tripod. And I want her to tell you what kinds of things she's doing to help.
Okay. I think the first thing I get to do is to play with your pictures. Lynn sends me a one-liner with your images, and I get to mush it around and then turn that into a poster that I post on Facebook, and then I get to moderate who sees it. And maybe from there, if you're nice, we invite you back. And but otherwise, I'm here to flash the clock at our speakers and tell you when to stop talking. But that's really, I don't know, there's lots of little trivial things, but I'm here to support Lynn. Oh, she's reminding me, yes, there's a microphone that I will be walking around with after every speaker. We ask that you please allow me to bring you the microphone so that if you have a question, you will speak into the microphone. Because we're recording this, and that's for posterity's sake, but we want to make sure that people hear your questions and can go from there. Any questions? Thank you.
Any questions? Where's that mic? So our first speaker tonight, yes, Davis, would you like to come up and say something?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Anyone know what this is, Volcano? Have you seen it? Well, in this issue, if you haven't, there's a full page on
Use the
Lynn.
microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry, microphone. I always thought my voice was so loud, at least my students tell me that. I think they want to sleep. But anyway, it's a full page on Lynn, Tripod. Lynn, as you know, is the founder of Tripod. So I scarfed up a bunch of copies. I'll hand them out as I walk back to my seat, and if there'll be a few left in the back. That's all I want to say. Would anyone like to have one and take home?
Cathy, would you like to come up and say something? Eventually we'll get to the speakers. But this is so entertaining.
Oh, I'm just going to go.
Okay, we'll let you.
I'm not sure I could match that, but if you were at Costco today, you could have seen me or Eileen back there out putting flyers on cars and walking up to these poor people who are trying to load their junk in their car and say, hi, I'm from Third Act, which is older people trying to help the world, and I am going to ask you to sign this petition, which is not saying don't shop at Costco. We love Costco. It's saying ask Costco to dump Citibank as their credit card partner, because Citibank is the second largest funder of fossil fuel projects in the world and the largest of coal project in the United States. And people were very nice. No one spit at me. And only at the end did the Costco police come over and tell us to leave. And we did. But tonight, we're going to be standing at the back, and we're going to ask you to either sign the petition now or take a flyer and sign it online and let your friends know, too. We'll see if we have any effect.
Do you have to be a resident of Tacoma?
No. This is nationwide. This is actually being done all over the place. You don't even have to belong to Costco.
Ooh.
Thanks. So Andy Mouse is a curator, educator, artist, and community leader, and is the executive director of the Tacoma Art Museum. Before relocating to Tacoma to lead TAM, he served as the director of Plains Art Museum, an accredited regional contemporary museum in downtown Fargo, North Dakota. How many people have been to Fargo? I lived there as a kid. With the focus on regional artists, American modernism, and traditional and contemporary Native American art. At Plains Art Museum, he had done everything from visitor services to organizing major exhibitions and programs to leading the institution. A member of the Board of Trustees for the prestigious Association of Art Museum Directors, Mouse is a national arts leader with a passion for arts access, education, working with living artists, and expansive museum work that includes innovative community projects and engagements. Prior to becoming director and CEO of the Plains in 2016, he led the Minnesota Marine Art Museum, Winona, I don't know why I can't say that. Winona, Minnesota. You try to say it. Say it. It's hard. For 6 years, where he oversaw dramatic expansion of the museum. Mouse received a BA in studio art and an MS in public administration, nonprofit management, both from Minnesota State University, Moorhead, and currently lives in Tacoma with his family. So let's welcome Andy Mouse.
I'm not afraid to pander, starting with a picture of a cute kid. Okay. So when I was hired as the executive director of Tacoma Art Museum, I remember reading the announcements in the paper, and they were things like, Tacoma Museum hires museum director from the Midwest. Whoa. At first I was like, why is this like focus on the Midwest? Is probably one of the least interesting things about me is that I lived in Minnesota or North Dakota. But then I realized, well, they don't know anything about me. So for this reason and this reason only, I'm going to start in kindergarten, and then I'm going to take you through every day of my life. Day one. I was raised in a small town in western North Dakota that people there would probably call a big town. I was born with spina bifida, so my hopes of becoming a professional NBA player were dashed at an early age. I do remember a few things about my youth, though. So this is the year that I won my first drawing contest. So I still remember what I made. It was a drawing of a tree, and it had a little, like a songbird and some notes floating in the air, probably slightly above average. But the point being, I still remember the feeling of being recognized and realizing that I was pretty good at something, despite being a somewhat awkward kid. I know that's hard to imagine, seeing that guy right there. But in 6th grade, I was voted in my class to become most likely to become an artist. And these things sort of just, became a part of my identity and gave me some confidence. And I began to use art not as the therapy, but as a part of coping with myself, my body, the world in general, and became a central part of my existence. In high school, I used to enter, so in Western North Dakota, there aren't art museums, there aren't art centers. I would enter drawing contests in the local hotel lobbies, and I would regularly win a ribbon, and I felt really good about that. When it came down to going to college, my dad, who's a lawyer, my sister was an accountant, and my brother was an engineer, and they actually supported me going to art school, and that was kind of an amazing thing. The lesson there being support your young artists in your life. I majored in painting and drawing at Minnesota State University Moorhead, as Lynn said. So these were some of the most formative parts of my life. Oh no, that's not the one. That's the one. Met my wife in college. We've been married for 23 years. That is my family. We have 2 amazing teenage boys. That's us at the gum wall. We also have a dog. The dog is not in the picture because can't imagine bringing the dog to the gum wall. It's like gross, just lick the wall. Yeah, that was in my imagination how that would play out. So we didn't do that. But anyway, a little bit about me. It was during that time as an undergraduate. This is not me as an undergraduate. This is me as director of Plains Art Museum. But I got my first job at Plains Art Museum in downtown Fargo, which is nothing like the movie, by the way. Lynn, I'm sure you can attest to this. It's maybe marginally like the movie, but not really. Plains Art Museum is an institution that I would do visitor services. I organized public programs. I became the director of education and started curating exhibitions. Somewhere along the way, I was washing dishes and working in the store and doing whatever else that they would let me do. That was the second museum that I led. But the point being, I mentioned Plains because it was the first time that I started to think about what a museum does and for whom, rather than what a museum, primarily thinking about what a museum has. So when you consider what a museum can do, museum work becomes perhaps a bit different than what you might imagine it to be. In my career, I've created the program and business plan for a Center for Art Making. I've co-created hip-hop mural events. I helped bring this giant red ball to downtown Fargo to help people think about their built environment. This is actually a project of an artist named Erik Perrohe who lives in North Carolina. This red ball has been around the world. He uses cities as canvas, and he just imagines a red ball and asks everyone else to imagine with him. I have helped create artist-designed garden spaces. This is an artist-designed garden space. Rob Fisher and Sue Leggett paid homage to the history of the Woodlawn Park neighborhood in Moorhead, Minnesota. I've hosted community potlucks in museums. Everyone in AAMD at the Association of Art Museum Directors, when I say, yeah, we do potlucks, they're always like, you do potlucks? I'm not sure what they think. Yeah, we do potlucks, it's fun. We work with cultural organizations, and we get amazing food, and we have amazing speakers, and we eat. I've expanded programs for living artists to support their livelihoods. I've hosted artist programs for kids who are new American refugees who need space to share their stories. I've created and supported Dia de los Muertos or Day of the Dead events. This is Dia de los Muertos at Tacoma Art Museum. Actually, it just happened the other day. It's like 1,000 people come, and these are a community of ofrendas that are built in our gallery. And there's a few images here of Day of the Dead at TAM. This is an enormous tapete that was just this amazing project that exists for a week or two at Tacoma Art Museum leading up to the event and then is destroyed, but it's spectacular every year. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself there. I have helped sustain programs for people with Alzheimer's, for families with children on the autism spectrum, and much more. This is 21st century museum work. Because of the gift that art gave me, combined with the data that I have about art's ability to nurture empathy, multicultural understanding, as well as success in the STEM fields, it's my thought that we should begin to think about art and art museums as useful and productive rather than how we oftentimes think about them as being luxurious commodities. In short, I've come to realize that art and art museums are actually more about people than about objects. Which brings me to this. I'm not going to go through, I could do a whole thing about like favorite artists, but I'm not going to go too deep into that. But Lynn was actually at my introduction to Tacoma Art Museum. We invited some of the museum supporters there. And the curatorial team asked me to choose an artwork to be behind me while I would talk, and then I would talk about the work. So we were going through works, and I sort of ended where I started, which was Marie Watts' Tear This Wall Down from 2007. This work, by the way, is currently in a major fiber art exhibition at Tacoma Art Museum called Soft Power, curated by Ellen Ito. Highly recommend you seeing that show. It's pretty spectacular. But Watt is an indigenous artist. She's enrolled in the Seneca Nation. She's known primarily for using blankets, including in this work. So blankets carry stories. She uses them to build community. There are specific meanings embedded in the blankets. We also know, and this is maybe more my personal interpretation, but we also know that historically blankets have been used as a weapon during British colonization of the United States. So these are complicated works. Her work is probably more about people than aesthetics, and it's always more complicated than it appears. And I feel like this is the central lesson that I take from, that I carry with me from the visual arts, which is best artworks are just like people. We're all more complicated than we appear, and everyone is just an invitation to learn. So that's what I get from Marie's work. And I invite you too, next time you visit a museum, to think about each artwork as an invitation. All right, so I don't have a picture of this. So we're just gonna look at Tacoma Art Museum while I share this story. It also includes some of my thoughts on leadership. So when I was living in Fargo, did you ask this question, how many people have been to Fargo? Okay, so Fargo is like known for a lot of things, but the winters have to be like the thing that really like life revolves around. So people have winter habits to survive. One of mine was going to the YMCA and riding on a stationary bike. So I was riding once, so you're gonna have to imagine me covered in sweat. I obviously don't have a picture of this for good reason, so consider yourself lucky. And I was just, getting a workout on a Saturday morning. And I'm wrapping up my ride, and an older man approached me and said, "You'll never know how much people admire someone who doesn't give up." And so he could see, I was wearing shorts that day. He could see that I was wearing leg braces. And I think he was just trying to pay me a compliment rather than send me down an existential rabbit hole, but he didn't know who he was dealing with. And I was going straight down the existential rabbit hole and wondering, how did I get here on this bike and in this life? And I'm probably not going where you think I'm going with this. I came to the conclusion that I was actually, I was there not primarily on a bike, right? And in life, not because I don't give up or because I challenge myself. More importantly, I was there because of other people. Other people in my life that gave me opportunities, had high expectations, were resourceful and supportive. I was there because of other people and systems. And I would say the same for me professionally. So this is how I like to carry myself at work, with the understanding that everyone is dependent on other people. And I think those that deny that fact are fooling themselves. Every leader who's in a position of influence was given opportunities from someone else and given support from someone else. It is in this way that I think we think about leadership in the wrong way. We sometimes think about it as being individual achievement that just sort of comes out of nowhere. But every leader was given opportunities and support. So, when we are truly, sorry, I just lost my, if we focus our energy on providing support and opportunity, we are truly cultivating what is good for individuals and communities. So, with that, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to lead your art museum, and I look forward to earning your support so we can do the things that are meaningful to people in the future. Thank you. Let's stay for questions.
Any questions?
Questions? How did I do on time?
You're perfect.
Oh, was it good? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it was excellent. I had a question about the size of the blanket piece you showed at the very beginning. I'm just curious about what size it was.
It's pretty big. It's like 4 to 5 feet. It's on a blanket, so it's blanket sized. Yes. Oh.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for sharing and welcome to Tacoma.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy the winter here.
It's going to be a cakewalk. Everyone warns me about it. I don't get it.
I just moved to here last year and I enjoy the winter here, I have to say. So I hope you do as well. Well, you mentioned about this potluck at museum event, or is it a series of events? I'm curious to hear you talk about food and art and in relation to community building, and what is your vision for the museum specifically? I really enjoy hearing you talking about you think it's more important to focus on what a museum can do rather than what what objects can a museum own or host or exhibit. So yeah, I would like to hear more in that aspect.
I'll say potlucks are not possible everywhere because there are state laws. In North Dakota, they don't care. You can, like, there are potlucks everywhere in every church, in every park, it doesn't matter. In Minnesota, they do care, and everything, it's got to be produced in a commercial kitchen, otherwise foodborne illness, all the things, allergies, all the things. But my museum was in North Dakota, so we could do whatever, and we were doing potlucks. So we were organizing them with organizations. Fargo is a sort of small sanctuary city. There are organizations there that support the needs of new Americans, and so we were partnering with those organizations and using the food as a way to build inclusion within the city, and so that people could be allowed to share food stories or cultural stories. So we would always have a program. Sometimes it was tied to the food, and sometimes it was just a cultural program.
Any further questions?
Yeah, we're right there.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here. I'm curious are there any immediate plans for the museum? And a second question I have is, are you going to be doing any outreach to the Tacoma area specifically? I mean, I know what you're doing today is part of that, but.
Yeah, so we're currently, so I've been here 4 months. What I've been able to do is basically, or maybe 5 months, we're starting the very beginning of the planning process for what is it that we're going to be doing in the next few years. So between now and spring, those planning processes will be fleshed out. What I've outlined today is more or less my values, but I also understand that museums we act collectively. So there are a lot of voices that need to be heard before determining how it is we're going to proceed. I can tell you, though, the Tacoma Art Museum loves Tacoma. Like, doubling down on the fact that we exist in this place is steadfast. That's what I've learned so far.
So you mentioned the connection between art and STEM. Could you expand on that a little bit? From my perspective, STEM has been displacing liberal arts programs in colleges around the country. And so I don't necessarily see that as a positive for arts.
Specific to youth education, what they find with particularly elementary school is where a lot of the studies originate. So they've studied multicultural understanding at a study at the University of Arkansas. Empathy is being studied at the University of Indiana, and then you have entrepreneurialism being studied at Michigan State. All of these are showing pretty dramatic correlations. But specifically to the STEM fields, it's pretty widely studied the connections between access to the arts and success in math and engineering. So people who have access to the arts are excelling in the other fields at a younger age. Now, that might differ at the college level.
Good questions. Anybody else?
Music is math, right?
First of all, Andy, we super appreciate you coming here tonight to talk to us. Everybody's been really curious to meet the new director. So I'm kind of curious. You're at the museum. You're the executive director. You have a big meeting. The curator is there. Or maybe you have more than one curator and other people, and you're getting ready to plan a year's worth of shows. Are there lots of organizations just pounding away at you, we want a show? Or is there a big catalog where you go, should we subscribe to this traveling show or that one? How are shows, how do they come about?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, the system that is in place currently is one that I would have put into place anyway if I, and it's new, so I don't know if they just knew that that's how I like to operate, but we have a curatorial team. There are 3 curators. There's a director of curatorial, and then there are 2 registrars, all of whom make decisions collectively. So there's actually like a proposal process where we'll bring what any member of the group feels is the best. And I'm in there too, but I don't dictate. That's not my style. So we do proposals. We're producing a lot of our own content. So I'll say that. I don't think there aren't very many traveling exhibitions that are on the current schedule. So I think the focus is on production of our own content. And we try to plan like 2 or 3 years in advance. I don't know if people know that, but.
So can you just get a bunch of artists in there to produce work and say, let's have a show of that?
Of what? Just a bunch of artists?
Whatever.
Is that the title of the show? Just a bunch of artists? That actually sounds really awesome.
Well, I'm kind of just kidding, but this is a room full of artists.
So we just produce a show right now?
Yeah.
Call it Just a Bunch of Artists. I kind of love that.
Good. Anybody?
A week? Okay. Probably
we're-
over. Yeah, thank you.
I think we're ready. Thank you. Right on time.
So our next speaker is Mary Mann. She started her career as an illustrator after graduating from the Colorado Institute of Art. In her years of taking commissions, she has painted children's museum exhibits, city buses, trade showrooms, murals in private residences, and answered calls for public art projects. Her love of drawing and painting is ongoing, and currently her studio's practice is focused on local landscapes and sea life. Mary is a native to both Tacoma and Missoula, Montana. She finds inspiration in science and nature. Passionate about public art and education, Mary has produced grant-funded murals throughout Tacoma. She has a lot of murals in Tacoma, and if we're lucky, we get to see some of them tonight. Often providing opportunities for high school students to participate. She enjoys collaborating with fellow artists on projects and is dedicated to lifelong learning. Mary is a recipient of the Tacoma Artist Initiative Project grant, in which she worked with 12 LGBTQ plus teens. Say that fast. Good luck. Hosting a self-portrait painting workshop, and their work will be on display in the Tacoma Art Museum on December 21st. It's open to the public. She hopes to see you there. Mary?
Thank you, Lynn. Thanks for inviting me here to talk about my project. I haven't learned how to use this yet. Do I just hit the okay. I'll figure it out. Okay. So first of all, before I talk about this one project, I wanted to thank the Office of Arts and Cultural Vitality for the City of Tacoma, because they just do amazing work. I'm talking about Naomi Strom-Avila, Rebecca Salverson, Ricky Reyes, and Daniel Garcia. I just appreciate all they do for so many artists in this town. So I think that's there we go. Okay. So this mural project, I call it the Ripple Effect, but it's also known as the Schuster Parkway Underpass mural. It came about because Tacoma Public Works saw a need to mitigate the often targeted graffiti in this area. You can see how many layers of paint were on the wall. My husband, Dan Sherman, spent hours to get a smooth surface. He scraped for hours. And apparently Public Works has been sending a crew there weekly to paint over the graffiti. So it's just very, very thick. Public Works funded this project, and I worked with a panel of community members to come up with the design. Their input was super helpful, and what I heard from them is that they wanted an artwork that welcomes visitors to the Chinese Reconciliation Park, is inclusive of all people, reflects the natural beauty and character of this place, promotes a feeling of peace, and uplifts the spirit. So one of the big challenges with this mural is that it spans from one wall across 6 columns and railroad tracks to the other wall. So we needed to have a design that unifies the space. Teresa Pan Hosley hugely inspired me to include imagery from the Chinese Reconciliation Park. The mission of the park is mostly to remember the story of the terrible actions when we in Tacoma expelled the Chinese community with hatred and violence. But above all, the park is there to promote peace, reconciliation, and joyful inclusion of all people. It's more about being hopeful for our future. So I asked Teresa to pose for me as a way to include those beautiful stones that are in the park. I love those sculptures that have relief of the people as they are being expelled from Tacoma. And they're really clear on the first stones, and then they gradually evolve into just disappearing. So that was a way to tell the story in a beautiful, really permanent art form. And I feel like water is one of the most defining characteristics of the natural beauty in our city. So we used layers of water colors on each column. It ties the space together, and there are a few subtle silhouettes of sea life to discover here and there. I wanted to include some sort of explanation about my intentions for this mural, and that idea turned into a poem. The title, The Ripple Effect, alludes to the idea that joy is contagious and that our community is diverse and thriving. We have a sun wall and a moon wall, and the sun and moon are kind of universal themes, and I think it represents balance. I like the way the moon ties into the Moon Festival that they have at the park every year. So really, the moon wall and the sun wall are the anchors, and each column that goes between is what's going on with this artwork. The sun wall shows an idealistic version of our place. It just focuses on the natural beauty, unspoiled by anything man-made. It's like a view of how it used to be when only the Puyallup people lived here. Whoops. Okay. And then right next to the sun wall, this seemed like the best place to put a really big land acknowledgement, which hopefully can be read by cars as they're going by really fast, which they do. When we were painting, this was not the most comfortable place to stand and paint. We were in the ivy, and the traffic was going really fast in between us and our paint supply, so that was a challenge. And this is Sandy Farewell and Nalani Mote. They did all the very tedious work to paint in between all of the letters on the land acknowledgement. There were at least 10 people that worked on this mural. This is Sandy Farewell and Terry Placentia, and this was the very last day. We were really happy. And this is Alice Lynch. She had a very steady hand and worked on some of the lettering. Nalani Mote is a graduate from Sammy High School, where I teach art. And it was really fun to have one of my ex-students there painting. She was a good helper. And that wall was tedious. It took a lot of time to paint in between the corrugated stripes of concrete. And that is Cordula, who is Nalani's mother. She came out to help. And my sister-in-law, Ellen Sherman. And there's Dan, my husband. Ellen was a big helper, and she supplied us with cookies. These are two high school students who are still currently, they're the leaders of my art club, and they came during the summer to help too. We had a friend visiting from Germany, that's Tia, and her husband Dennis, who is actually a firefighter in Berlin, and he was very proud to have painted most of the Guitar Man. And Paige Pettibon, who is an amazing local artist friend. She spent a day with us, which was really fun. And then Dan, my wonderful husband, who's here. He not only scraped and primed the walls, he loaded the equipment every day, which was really a lot of equipment. This is not a picture of all of the equipment. He was up on the ladder painting all the high parts. I don't know if it's in this picture, those curved quarter circles, I was calling them waves and he was calling them sails. But the idea was that each column would have a different color on it, kind of the colors of the rainbow. The rainbow being a symbol of inclusion, and also just a way to help the flow from one side to the other. And Dan rolled 2 coats of anti-graffiti coating over the whole thing when we were finished. So a little bit about how the process worked. I made a lot of paper patterns at home so that we could, it just allowed for us to hold them up, pounce with chalk powder onto the columns, making it so that we had all of the lines drawn quickly and anyone could jump in anywhere that was needed, kind of making a paint by number. And that's Nalani and Alice applying one of the patterns. And this is Terry painting those concentric circles around all of the medallions. Again, the concentric circles are another way to symbolize a ripple effect. And they're present on every column and on the sun wall and around the moon. Yeah, I created the designs for the circle medallions with a lot of input from our community panelists. We brainstormed what would be appropriate icons or images to represent on this new landmark. And we went through and listed about 32 things, and then we changed the list. And it was really kind of interesting to hear what people thought would be the best icons for Tacoma. Starting at the sun wall, they're more about, the icons are more about nature, and like these are the native birds, and then they kind of gradually morph into more images about the park and specific things to the waterfront. A lot of people use the water for recreation, and as we were painting, it was fun to see the people going paddle boarding and scuba diving and cold plunging, especially when we were over by the moon wall. It allowed us, painting to just kind of see who was using the park, and it's really, really inspiring to see how many people love that park and walk there every day. And they were very appreciative that we were making it look more cheerful. We intended to paint all 6 of the columns that are in between the walls, but alas, the railroad said, no, you cannot paint the 2 that are really close to the tracks because of safety reasons. But I'm hoping someday that they'll be convinced that the 2 blank columns would be nice to have the same colors and designs on them to let the flow, to not interrupt the flow. And this man happened by one day while I was painting, and he was actually visiting from Beijing, and his grandchildren live in Boston. And all of them came out to Tacoma just to see the Reconciliation Park. And they were curious about what we were doing, and I asked if I could take his picture because I needed some more references, and I was able to design this kind of based on his face and his grandchildren. And it was Carol Goforth, who was on the community panel, who suggested painting a couple posing for their wedding pictures on one of the circles. And I really love that idea. So I let my friend Julia and Trevor Kagochi let me use their actual wedding picture to design this one. Children splashing in the shallow end of the beach. What could be more joyful than that? These next few are just designs that didn't make it onto the columns because 2 of the columns were eliminated. So I have about 8 different designs that didn't make it. So I thought I'll show them here because nobody will get to see them. So this one is a picnic at the Sundial Park. A family walking on Ruston Way. And these are designed on my iPad, which was very fun for me because I've always just analog painted my designs for murals, and this time was my first time to do it all digitally, which really worked well because there was a lot of square footage in this project. Someone painting or fishing on the dock. And then this one's kind of rough. It's not fully developed, but cold plungers and scuba divers and kayakers. And beach exploration. And some teenagers dancing. That one, again, is not totally finished either. It would have the water in the background. So a few more shots of painting in progress. This is Sandy, and she was great. She painted all the green parts, and she was pretty funny. The giant peonies are, of course, because peony is a Chinese flower, and they grow a lot of peonies in the park. And they just make a really great big red visual that draws you in. And the ting is, I think, just a really great icon for a symbol for reconciliation, because the ting that's in our park came from China and was constructed by Chinese people. And like Teresa Pan-Hosley told me, that as you work your way through the park, it starts out with the story, all of the bad things that happened, and it's like a journey through the park, and you end up at the ting, which is the symbol for reconciliation. So it's all about hope for the future and never having that kind of thing happen again. The Nootka rose is featured on the sun wall because it's a native plant, and it just makes it balances out and mirrors the image of the peonies on the other side. And this is what was starting to happen when we were finishing up, is people were starting to have their pictures taken in front of the moon, which is really great. I think it's going to make a nice selfie location. Sandy took this picture. A positive ripple effect is achievable when a community makes space for everybody, when we create beautiful places and public art that invites all to share. As far as I know, there's been no graffiti in these areas since we made the artwork, and we hope it stays that way. So again, thank you to Public Works, Tacoma Arts Commission, and everyone who made this project happen. Thanks to the members of the community panel who came up with the cohesive vision for the mural. Teresa Pan and Larry Hosley, Steve LaBerge, Carol Goforth, Christopher Ubelhor, and Michael Duggan. And that's all I have.
Mary, did it take as long as you thought it would?
Oh, that's, we started painting on about August 24th, and we finished on September 29th. It took a shorter amount of days than I thought it would. But we had, like I said, 10 people helped. Joni would have been there, but she went to India and then got COVID. Joni has worked with me on everything I've painted, and I've helped her with things she's painted. But yeah, it had to go fast because we didn't have, it was going to start raining soon. So, hours, yeah. I counted the hours, and from first meeting to finishing the coats of protective coating, it was 700 hours. That's my time. It was 100 hours of my time for meetings and design work, and then it was 600 everybody else's hours added up together. So, yeah, a lot of hours.
So, Mary, over
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
Is this on? Yes. My question is related, but it's kind of, what is the total time from when either it was conceived or when you first heard about it?
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Oh,
was it
yeah.
like a 2-year project, or was this 6 months?
No,
or?
it was about, I think, February that I applied for it. It was just put out, only artists who were on the roster of mural artists in Tacoma could apply. I think 40 people applied. And then it took them a long time to tell us who was a finalist. So the deadline passed, like, I thought, oh, I guess I didn't make finalists for that, because that came and went. And then I found out, oh, you are a finalist. So then they had interviews there was 3 finalists, and we had interviews sometime in June? I think June, yeah. And then it took, well, then when they chose me, I said, okay, I want to start tomorrow. But we had to wait until the wall was ready and things. But I had to spend a lot of time actually working on my design, so it all worked out. Yeah.
2 more questions.
When you did the art, I understood your husband prepped it
Yeah.
as well as other people.
Yeah.
And did you use pounce and
Yeah.
and a tool to transfer the outline of where you wanted to go?
Yeah, so I designed everything on my iPad. So we had a plan, and it was all printed out to look at. And then at home, I made some of those paper patterns. So I projected them onto the wall. The biggest circles on those columns are 72 inches wide, and they wrap around it. So they were on paper and little holes in it, and then chalk, so pouncing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there was a few of them that we just drew. We could just look at our plan and draw it because it was small enough. Right. So it's just a mixture of variety of ways.
I have
Oh,
one
hi.
question. Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for doing this. It was beautiful to watch the work happen as I tried not to speed past too fast on Schuster. It was wonderful. But I really am touched by the fact that a gentleman from Beijing had visited, especially with his family from Boston. I would love to know if you had a further conversation with him to know if he had family connection, what his actual motive. I understand his general motivation,
Yeah.
but if he had a personal connection and story. But I also
yeah, I didn't
compliment
know.
you for being thoughtful enough to include an image in homage to him as well, because I feel like that is a hugely significant part of the park.
Oh, thank you. He didn't speak a lot of English, but his children did, and his grandchildren, they all live in Boston, but they were just out visiting the West Coast. And so I did tell him I wanted to use his picture. And I couldn't promise I was going to, but I gave him my card so he could look at my website. I said, you could see the pictures. So I don't know his name or anything, but we had a lot of nice interactions with people who were talking to us when we were painting, and people yelling from their cars, "Looks beautiful!" as they're, so. And thank you. A lot of people said thank you. So that was nice.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I feel like it's changed that whole underpass so beautifully. I didn't even see that it was happening, and all of a sudden just driving down there, it was like it appeared almost overnight to me. And and those rays of sunshine just come way out and, to meet me every time. I feel
Thank
like
you.
it really has changed that location. So thank you. It's really
Thank you.
beautiful.
My last question would have to do with how we might be able to continue partnerships with you. I'm looking for one
Oh, okay.
on behalf of Audubon. And
Oh,
so
okay.
what would that kind of thing look like? How would one begin that
Just
process?
talk to me.
Okay.
I'll give you my business card. I didn't bring my business
That's
cards.
next.
But, yeah, I have a website, and you can just email, talk.
Great.
Sure. I'd love to do more public art.
Great. Any other questions?
So I've been involved with the art community in Tacoma for about 15 years, and what I've seen, unfortunately, is sometimes the city of Tacoma has created community artwork, and then it's been taken down or something's happened to it. So what are the plans to preserve this art, both just because it's paint and it's in the outside, and to ensure that we continue to have this beautiful creation that you've created throughout the years?
Well, we put some very expensive coating on it, and that's the best we can do. It's outside. We put 2 coats of clear coat that's called Mural Guard, and the idea is if it gets spray painted on, you can, there's another product that you can squirt and wipe it off. I don't know if it works that well, but we'll see. And everything's temporary, but I think it will last for at least 10 years, 20. That's what I believe.
You don't have to run down there and wipe it off, do you?
Well, there is a protocol that if that happens, they're supposed to alert me, and I have the option to go fix it and get paid to fix it. But that's what's on paper, so hopefully it won't happen, you know. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
So the December tripod show is December 15th. That's the 3rd Friday, as usual. And Angie Josie, who is the owner of the Volcano now, will be speaking and showing images. And also someone, Kevin Johnson from Metro Parks, who's leading a restoration project ongoing, where they, do they remove the native plants, or is it the other way around, Claudia?
They install them, multiple parks.
Okay. And then Arlie Hyatt from Tidy Up is presenting a program on, or with Tacoma's waste management program. So that'll be pretty interesting. So next up is Jennifer Weddermann, who has over 20 years experience as a licensed architect, being one of the first to attain the title of Lead AP in Tacoma. Weddermann Architecture has been official for 14 years. Jennifer learned welding in graduate school when she discovered she could make furniture from scrap metal instead of expensive hardwood. Over the years, she has used laser cutting in her work, as well as traditional fabrication and blacksmithing. Currently running an architectural firm of 8 people, Weddermann Architecture has projects ranging from small residential additions and ADUs to large multifamily and commercial projects. But the most important projects to Jennifer are the community-focused projects, like shelters, churches, and nonprofits. Those are the ones she feels are the most important, as they are not about making money, but providing spaces that positively impact the most humans. Eventually, she would like to expand her construction side of the company into a more general, construction-capable division to offer the public honest pricing, realistic timelines, and good craftsmanship. Jennifer?
much less prepared than my fellow speakers, but I'll do my best. I'm only focusing on one project. Taller, I guess. Okay. You wouldn't know I'm a singer by night, would you? I'm afraid of the microphone. Okay, so this project was for us at the firm. We'd rented space for a while. We'd owned a building in Furcrest we grew out of, and I finally said, okay, we got to find something that, when the roof leaks, we can fix it ourselves. We don't have to wait for some landlord to get around to it. So this building we found in the south end of town. It was previously a biker bar, and the whole site had been vacant for a few years. COVID had hit, and the people that tried to make it back into a restaurant failed. But the building is actually in a weird zoning where half the building is commercial and half the building's residential, believe it or not. Somewhere in the middle, there's like a line. So I had to convince the city that we were in fact going to use it as a business and that was okay. And then, so it was one of those weird dances with the city of Tacoma where you have to convince them not to make you set the whole building back 100 feet because it's next to a house. So it was this crazy situation. And having permitted over 300 projects in the city of Tacoma, they didn't give me any special favors at all. In fact, I kind of wonder if I was held to a higher standard. But we persevered. My staff and I had fun designing the project. Let's see. So that's from the back. The bar this was actually the state of after we cleaned it up. We had that 40-yard container, I think we brought 3 times just to haul garbage off the site. And I had to buy everybody those special gloves that was helping because there were so many needles and things they could hurt themselves with. So it was definitely a tricky situation. But the price was right. Go figure. So it already had graffiti on it when we started. So that was fun because before I actually took ownership, the city of Tacoma wrote me a really nasty letter and said I must clean off my graffiti. So I thought that was hysterical. I had fun writing that email. So let's see. So the building, as it was, had been gutted and trenched all over because the new restaurant was going to put everything in a different place. So I had about 2/3 left of the slab, maybe at the most. It was kind of chewed up pretty bad. And there were these really fun columns covered in stickers in the middle of the space, which we quickly found out weren't actually attached to anything. They were holding the roof up, but they weren't attached to anything. So this is kind of where the grill had been. Everything from the right over was the giant walk-in cooler. Everything was just shredded, basically. All the sheetrock had been torn off. We don't know why. But all that the building is, generally speaking, is that 3 back walls are just a single width block wall. So and they're all hollow. So not much going on as far as structure. It's kind of a shot when we had cleared out quite a bit of it. Still a couple walls in the back. So the demo went on for a long time. And then we started the process of the seismic upgrade that I wanted to do. It was a significant remodel, so we really had to. And honestly, when you're committing to a building for the rest of your life, you want it to stay standing up. So we had 140 of these. Every other stud bay, we had to go back into the block with this little expanding thing, and it was epoxy and all this craziness. So 140 of those later. More of the trenching near the bathrooms. Funny enough, we had to trench more because the plumbing had to go in a new place. So these are some of the new walls going up. And then you can kind of see through to the backyard. The walls for the bathroom are there now, and the walls for the phone room and the kitchen are in place. Still the trenching. We took advantage of the trenching and laid some power, so we have some floor outlets just for fun, because we can. So when the front came down, you'll notice all that in the front, that was the brick wall. So I went around the corner one day, because I was the general contractor, so I was on site every day. And I walked around the corner and I heard this like, and I came back around and it was just on the ground. It wasn't attached at all. So that had to go. So that was fun. So then we started, so the weird thing about this building was that it wasn't built out to the property line, because if you know the streets in Tacoma, they do these realignments all the time, right? So Tacoma, Yakima, they're wiggling around, and for some reason, this building had a property line that was way out from where it had been built, probably not originally. So I convinced the city to let me build an addition on the front, because I had to rebuild the front anyway. Why not get 400 more square feet? So we poured a new foundation out at the edge of the property, and we tore a big hole in the back for a garage door. You can see I'm not leaving much intact actually anymore. And then the moment frame that the structural engineer decided we needed to have because the building was so worthless structurally is starting to go in here. And that's it from the outside. You can see where the front door is going to go, the little notch. So at some point, my framer decided he was a dirt guy and dug out about 3 feet too deep for the footing, so they got very expensive on me really fast. Yeah, I don't use him anymore. And so what we did was we took those columns with the stickers and we reused them. I welded plates on the bottom and buckets on the top so that they're carrying the new glue lambs in the front of the office. So I did all the welding on this project except for the moment frame, because that had to be witnessed by a third-party inspector because it's structural. Not that I don't think I'm a better welder than that guy, but it just, I'm not WABO certified. So anyway, so the moment frame is in. We've got walls starting. So the concept of this building and kind of my work has always sort of been this idea of kind of this fractured thing that we're trying to put back together. And so this building obviously was, pretty falling apart. The roof was intact, believe it or not, but everything else needed something. So the concept was just kind of this one big giant window that was sort of cracking the front of the building open. You can see it better there, wrapping around the corner. And this is when it started to rain. We found all the roof leaks, so the roof had to get patched up. And you can see the insulation. That's the wall to the shop. So my building is just a big square with an angled front now, and the back 500 square foot corner is my metal shop. So this is me welding the canopy inside the building because I didn't want to weld it outside. I had no room on the sidewalk. But that's the canopy over the front door. The city required pedestrian cover for a certain percentage of the sidewalk. So that's me waiting to, just toss it up there to those guys that are on the roof. It was all, COVID masks and everything. This is kind of after the sheetrock guys came through and some of the carpets getting laid down. That red paint, it took us, and I'm not exaggerating, 30 coats to get the guy who did the welding. He put his logo on every piece of metal. It took me 30 coats to get it to not show up anymore. I could have killed him. Never let them put their logo on your stuff. So this is kind of in progress. So on the bottom, it's all mild steel. I had laser cut to fit exactly. And then above, we laid a black paper so that the siding, when it went up, would not show anything through. So that's kind of a done picture. Let's see, yeah, some professional shots. So my new logo on the side there. Oh, look, I have a laser. My logo. So I feel like I've come to my claim of fame now because I got tagged right there the other day. Right there. But yeah, so it's pretty fun at night. This lights up red. I got some plastic from second use. So I guess one of the things I want to talk about with this and the idea of reusing and recycling and sustainable design. We have, buildings all over Tacoma that just need some love. And I feel like the tendency is the cheaper thing. The masculine thing, tear it down, stick it in a container, get it out to the dump. And I feel like the most sustainable thing that we can do is try to reuse everything we can. Keep all those blocks on the site, keep the roof intact, and just repair it the best you can. And buildings all have lifespans. You're never going to make anything last forever. But so that's the wall, Mary, that I want mural on. Did you see that side? Oh, I can't see down there on that side. Let's see, is it going to work? Let me get through the last couple shots here. Bike rack the city made me put in. Cracked me up. That's me in the shop, happy as a clam, because I have my shop. So we still do a lot of welding in the shop. We make all the furniture in the office. So generally when I rearrange anything or whatever, I still need to have a shop. I'm definitely taking on smaller projects than I used to. And that's the conference room. We cut a 4-foot skylight in because it's in the middle of the building, so we don't have to use lights in there very much. This is the finished art office, so I think that's it. Yep, I think that's the last slide. Yeah, I'll go back to the pretty shot. So yeah, here we go. Before, after. Yeah. Thank you.
Questions?
Couple in the front. Okay, sorry. Got a few.
So do you have any slides with examples of your furniture that you weld?
Oh yeah, I have tons, not with me, but
Okay.
How
can people view things creativity that you do with your metal art?
There's a little bit on my website, Weddermann.com. Like the larger public art pieces I've done are on there.
Oh.
I don't have many pictures of all the little stuff anymore. At some point, somebody advised me that I should only have big things on my website.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I love working with people on little things now because it's fun. Huh? Oh yeah, they're all over Tacoma. If it's big and metal and weird, or even small and metal and weird, it probably is something I built. We made a little scavenger hunt up. I should have brought those pages tonight. There's 30 projects of mine kind of highlighted on a map of Tacoma. Showcase Magazine did that for me. So yes, Celine.
So,
sorry, he has the mic.
I saw you, or I met you at Art at the Artery, Armory, not the Artery. And then I saw your address, and I drove past because it's in my neighborhood, and I drove past the building. And let me tell you, folks, this building is much more beautiful than any slide that she's done up there. It really is fantastic.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you. Oh, I forgot to mention all the windows on the front. I welded all the frames in place. That was like, so if you drove by it and you saw some crazy person welding on the side of the building, like hanging off, that was me. It's hard to tell them.
And that leads me to my question. I'd like to know the cross streets because I definitely want to drive by and see it.
Yeah, it's 4629 South Yakima. So it's a really nice little neighborhood. It's really flat there. There's lots of cute little craftsmen. I think the next thing we need to do is get rid of the eyesore of a convenience store on the corner. But yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, there's a sculpture on the back of the building now of a motorcycle that I did sort of in tribute to the bikers and to my child. And it has this big wing coming off the back. So if you go around the building, you can see in the back that I've done some fun stuff too.
Well,
yeah, it's fun.
It looks fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is it on? I'd like to know how it got paid for.
Oh, me. Yeah, I got out a loan, SBA loans. You only need 10% down. And so I got a loan out for the building, and I got an initial loan out for the construction. And then the COVID process of making everything more expensive, I had to go back and get more money from the bank. But they were pretty happy because they invested a total of like $800,000 with me, and I put in the other 100 or 150, and it's worth 1.2 now or something. So they're like, let's do that again.
How many square feet is the building? And you have the workshop in it and offices, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, it's about 3,000 square feet now. It was about 2,600 when I bought it. So we got a little chunk of new in the front. That's where I sit. And then there's a door to the shop right there with a 1 hour separation like a garage would have. So it's very cool. Claudia's got tile in the kitchen. So if you want to come visit and see some of Claudia's work, come on by. Always got coffee. Happy for visitors.
Hi.
Yeah.
Could you do a interpretation of your logo?
Oh, so I am okay. So if there are any graphic designers in the house, you'll know architects are the worst clients ever. I must have had every shop in town try to design me a logo, and I finally just had to stop and pick one. But it has a lot to do with the fracturing idea and the idea that Weddermann architecture, unfortunately, is WA, and you can't do that in this state. I can't even have a W before somebody thinks I'm like the UW or something. So W stinks. So in the end, it became an abstraction of a W and an A, kind of the negative space. You can read the W and the A. And then, of course, red is my signature color and always will be. So the A got highlighted.
That's great. Thank you.
We think of ourselves as architects with a lowercase a, but still, it's okay.
Any further questions? Over here, one more.
Can you post that map on Lynn's website? Sure, I bet I could do that.
So-
I have PDFs of it.
Going into this project, I'm sure you looked at everything. Were you more or less surprised by the cans of worms that you discovered?
Oh no, I knew what I was getting into. There were even safes bolted to the floor that I had to pay to have removed because you have to drill out a safe to get inside it to get to the bolts to get it out. I mean, yeah, I knew it was going to be the whole enchilada. You know, new mechanical, new plumbing, new electrical for sure. Had one happy surprise. We went to scope the sewer and we thought this has got to be the sewer. It's new and it was solid, like gross. I don't want to talk about it, but then we found another sewer. And it was clear, and it was old. So I have no idea, but that was like, yes. The little things. Any other questions?
Good job. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot for coming. You've been a fabulous audience. Let's give ourselves a round of applause. See you December 15th. Yes, Terry?
Oh, yeah, do come back because I need you here.
Come here. We have one more announcement.
One more announcement?
Thanks, Lynn.
Tell them who you are.
Okay. Yes, hello, everyone. My name is Blake Laru. I'm a local artisan, I guess. I make my living restoring stained glass windows for churches and historic buildings. And tomorrow at 2 p.m., I'm giving a talk or a presentation on the process of restoring the stained glass dome in the First Church of Christ Scientists here right around the corner. So they're doing an open house. It's going to be a presentation on the history of the building, and then I'll be talking about the process of restoring their stained glass. And I'm already nervous talking now, so I don't know how tomorrow's going to go. Yeah.
It's a dome.